So let's review the project scope for the car insurance online quotation. So we're gonna have 3 different car models. Each of these is going to return different prices. Each year, the cost of insurance should decrease the value by 3%. Basic and complete coverage will have different prices. And finally, must be developed using prototypes, and then it's going to be migrated to classes. So we're gonna see the project. So this is going to be the car insurance quote online. So for example, here on the make, you can select between 3 different models: American, Asian, and European. Each of these is going to return a different value. So we're gonna select American. Then we have the year, and you can select the year of your car right here. As we saw in the project scope, each year the cost of the insurance is going to cost 3% less. So for example, 2080 is going to cost more than a car that is, for example, from the year 2000. We are going to write that algorithm in this course. So finally, basic and complete insurance will have different prices. So we're gonna select basic, and we're gonna click here on get quote. You can see this is going to calculate everything, and then it's going to print the result. We have the make, and it's American, the year is 2080, and the level of protection is basic, so this is going to be the cost. So now let's say that we want to quote the complete insurance. We're going to click here on get quote. We're going to calculate again, and you can see that the price is higher. So the different car models are going to print also different values. So for example, the Asian, we're going to click here, on get quote, and gonna calculate this. You can see the result is different. Also, if you change to basic, it's going to give you a different value. Finally, the European is going to be the most expensive. We're going to click here on get quote, and you can see the value is different. Now, as I said before, the year of the car is also an important factor when we are calculating the insurance. So let's say we quote 2010, get quote, and you can see the value is lower. If you quote a car from 1999, you can see the price is lower. And we have this summary that says make, year, the level of protection, and also the total. So this is going to be the project for this chapter. It's going to be developed using prototypes, and then we're going to migrate this to ECMAScript 6 classes. So let's start working in the next video. In the course materials, you will find this project that is called insurance. We're going to open this into Visual Studio Code. So let's open this, and let's open the project, the index.html. And right click and open this with live server. And once this opens, we're gonna take a look at the HTML that we have here. So it's going to be this project. You can see we have car insurance, and we're gonna quote this online. In the make, you can select between 3 different makes. In the year, we're gonna see how you can add the year, and also here on the level, we're gonna see the coverage, basic or complete. Then we're gonna click here on get quote, and it's going to print the result. And here it says year with age. So I'm gonna remove that, and let's make this bigger right here. So this is the structure. You can see, for example, that the year is empty, this select is empty. We're gonna create all the different options using JavaScript. I'm going to show you how to do this in this video. And we also have the make. We have 3 different options. Of course, in the real world, there are more than 3 different makes, but this is going to be the basics that you need to understand to create a project like this. Finally, here on the bottom, we have the level of protection. You can see we have a radio button, and you can select between basic or complete. Here on the bottom, we have this spinner. We're going to show this spinner. The spinner will give the idea that this is doing some calculations. And also, this project is done with Bootstrap material. So this is why it's looking this nice. And you will find this app.js. Here is where we are going to write all the code. So first we're gonna start creating the different years for the year options that we have here. For the year select, we're gonna print the different years. So we're gonna create, for example, right here, I'm gonna open this. We're gonna create a comment that says variables. Second one that says event listener. And finally, we're gonna create the different objects. We're gonna use objects and prototypes. Then I'm gonna show you how to create this same project using classes. So we're gonna create something like this. Here on the event listeners, I'm gonna create a new event listener. We're gonna create something, document add event listener. We're gonna create this once the DOM content is loaded. And this is going to be an anonymous function. Here I'm gonna create the options for the years. This is going to print everything using JavaScript. So we're gonna create a new object here on the bottom. We're gonna create a function, and I'm gonna call this object HTML UI. So this is going to be everything that is related to the HTML is going to be added right here. And actually this object doesn't have any properties. It will only have the prototypes attached to this. So right here at the bottom, I'm gonna create the object, the prototypes, displays the latest 20 years in the select. So we're gonna create HTML UI dot prototype. The function is going to be called display years, and this is going to be a function, and we're going to write the body of the function. So this insurance company has a policy, and they only offer insurance for cars that are newer than 20 years. So that's why we need to create or print the options from the latest 20 years. So we're gonna create a comment max and minimum years. So we're gonna create a new variable called max. It's going to be the max number. It's going to be equals to new date. And remember, when you add new date, it will retrieve the current date. And if you add get full year, this is going to print the current year. So we're gonna send to the console this value. And here on the DOM content loaded, we need to instantiate this. And the variable is going to be called HTML. And this is going to be equals to new HTML UI. So you can see that this doesn't take any properties or nothing. So it's going to be like this. Then we're gonna use HTML, and we're gonna call this display years method like this. So save this and open Google Chrome, open the console, and here on the console you can see we have the current year. So this is going to print the current year. We need to get the latest 20 years. So right here I'm going to add a comma, and I'm gonna call this one min, which is going to be the minimum year, and we can add max minus 20, and then we can send this to the console. So now it's going to print 1998. Now we have the max and the minimum year. So for example, in the next year, 2019, this code is going to get updated and is going to print the max year, which is going to be 2019, and the minimum year, which is going to be 1999. So next we're gonna generate the list with the latest 20 years. So we need to select, for example, if I open the index, scroll to the top, here on the select, you can see that we have this ID called year. So we're gonna add const select years is going to be equals to document get element by ID. Of course, you can use also query selector, and we're gonna pass the current year or the select year. Then we're gonna print the values. We're gonna use a for statement. So we're going to add for, and we're gonna use let I And instead of using I equals 0, we're going to start at the minimum year. So we want to print from this minimum year all the different options in the select. Then we're going to use I minus and the max year. The max year is going to be the expression that is going to stop this for loop. And then we're going to add I++. So then we're going to create the option, let option. We can also use const. I think, yeah, we can use const in this case. So const option, and then we're going to use document dot create element, and we're going to create the options. So we're going to create one by one the different options using this for loop. Then we're going to add option.value, and the value is going to be the current year. Option that text content is going to be also the current year. And finally, we're going to use the select years, and we're going to append the childs. So we're going to use append child, and we're going to pass the options. So save this and open the project. And now you can see we have all the latest 20 years. There is a problem here because it's not printing 2080. It's because this, we need to add something like minus or equals. You can see now this is going to print the current year. But there is something here, it's printing this, and you can see the year, the first year that is selected is 1998. I want to print this year first. So we need to change this for loop just a little. Instead of using the minimum year, we're going to use max. So this is going to start from 2080. Then we're going to invert this. So we're going to start from 2080, and we're going to run this loop to the min year. So this way we're going to decrease the value. So right here we're going to use I minus minus. So let's open this. You can see by default we have 2080, and the last year is going to be in 1999. If you want to print 1998, you can add greater or equals to the minimum year, and this is going to print 1998. But you can see that you can also use JavaScript to create this code. Instead of writing a bunch of different selects, you can use something like this, and you can write a similar function to this one. Finally, if we inspect this and open the select and open the options, you can see that we have the values, and we also have the text with the year, and this is working just fine. So in the next video, we're going to continue working with this project. So in this video, we're going to create a listener and write the function when you click here on get quote. So let's open the project. Here on the top, I'm going to write this form. I'm going to create a variable using this ID. So we're going to call this one const form is going to be equals to document get element by ID, and we're going to pass request code. Then on the event listeners, we're going to listen for the submit. So right here, I'm going to add when the form is submitted, and we're going to add the variable form, add event listener. We're going to pass the submit, and then we're going to write the function right here. And we're going to add the function right here. And of course, if you want to create a separate function, you already know how to do something like that. I'm going to add E, prevent the default. So this is going to prevent the default submission. And then we're going to write the code that is going to be executed when the form is submitted. Something that we can do in this part is to create a function called event listeners, like this, and add these both event listeners right here, and then execute these event listeners. Something like this, in order to add these event listeners outside of the global scope. So then, for example, we're going to create three different variables. If you take a look here on the design, you can see we need to write a variable to get this value from the make, also for the year, and also for the level. So we're going to create a const that is called make, and we're going to use document get element by ID. And in this case, we're going to use this ID that is called make. I'm gonna show you something. So for example, when you have something like this, copy this. When you have a select like this, and let's say that you try to get a quote from an European car, and you here on the console type this selector, you can see that this is going to return the world element. When you have an input text, you can add value. If you add something like this, you can see we have the number 3. Or there is a second method that you can use. And I'm gonna, for example, create a new variable const selected. We're gonna say something like make select equals to document get element by ID. And then you're going to add another one, const selected make equals to make that options. And then inside square brackets, you add again make select, and a dot and selected index dot value, and then you call selected make. This is going to return also the number 3. So both ways are a nice way of doing something like this. Just in case that you found a code like this when you are working with a project. So we're gonna call this one value. We're gonna create a second one. It's going to be the year. Document get element by ID, and we're gonna select the year also, and we're gonna add value. So then we're gonna set both variables into the console.log make and console.log year. Save this, and I'm gonna make this smaller. I'm gonna select American and 2010, and we're gonna click here on get quote. And you can see we have number 1 and number 2010. We're printing 1 right here. If you inspect the code right here, or better, if you open the index.html, the value of these makes is 1, 2, and 3. So if you scroll a little, you can see that these radio buttons doesn't have any IDs. If you add something like ID here, and you add ID coverage, for example, you cannot use coverage right here, because you should add only one ID per document with this name. So we're gonna see how you can read. I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna add a comment, read the values from the form. And here I'm gonna create a new comment that says read the radio buttons. So we're gonna write a code like this. We're gonna call this variable level. This is going to be the level of protection. Then we're gonna use document query selector. And we're gonna use something similar to a CSS3 selector. We're going to add input. Then inside curly square brackets, I'm gonna pass this name. You can see that the name is level in both. So we're gonna add name equals to level. And then we're gonna use a pseudo selector, and we're gonna check for the checked one. The one that is checked is going to be returned. Then we're going to access the value. So if you try to copy this and open this in Chrome, you can see I open console. You can see that we have basic, so copy this and paste, and you can see we have basic. If I change this to complete and run this again, now you can see we have complete. So this is a nice way to check which of these radio buttons is select. And now you can see that we have the 3 different variables. So right here I'm going to add a comment. Check that all the fields have something. Some content should be in all the different fields. So we're going to add an if statement. And right here we're going to check for the different conditions. If make is equals to nothing, or the year is also equals to nothing, or the level is also equal to nothing, we are going to print an error. Console.log error. Of course, we are going to create a better message. Else console.log all right. So save this, and let's open the project again. You can see here on the make, I'm not going to select anything, and we're gonna click get quote. You can see we had error. In the case of the year, you can see that you cannot leave this empty, and also for the review. But this is the nice way that you can use to check that all the different fields in a form have something before you perform something in your code. So basically we need to change this from a make. We need to add any make, and this is going to pass this validation. So select a make and click here on get quote. Now you can see we have all right. So in the next video we're gonna print an error using this. Then we're going to make all the different calculations and print the results in the else statement. So let's continue working in the next video. So we're gonna continue working with this. First we're gonna work with the section that is printing the error. So it's going to be this part here. And you can see here on the top, we instantiate the HTML. So we're gonna move this, we're gonna cut this, and we're gonna add this into the global scope. So right here, if we send this console.log, the variable HTML, it should print the instance of this. So we need to click here on get quote, and you can see that we have the object. So instead of adding another new object, we're gonna use this one. So right here I'm going to add HTML and a dot, and we're gonna call this method display error, and we're gonna add a message. This one is going to be called all the fields are mandatory. So we need to create this method. So we're gonna scroll to the bottom, and you can see that we only have this display error. So right after we're gonna create another prototype, prints an error. We're gonna add HTML UI, a dot, prototype, a dot, the name of the method, and it's going to be a function. You can see that here I pass this message, so this is going to take a message in the argument, and like this. So right here we're gonna create a div. So it's going to be called div const div equals to document create element, and we're gonna create a div. Then we're gonna add a new class. We're gonna add a class called error. Then we're gonna insert the message. So it's going to be like this, div inner HTML equals to, and we're gonna add template or string literals, and I'm gonna add a paragraph, and we're gonna pass the message. So we're gonna create a div using JavaScript. We're gonna add this class. Finally, inside the div, we're gonna add a paragraph with the message. So I'm gonna print this. For example, if we inspect the code, I want to print this before the form, above the form, and you can see that here we have this form variable. So we're gonna use this. Scroll to the bottom, and right here we're gonna use form and a dot insert before. Insert before will take two different parameters. So we're going to add, the first one is going to be the div that you want to insert. It can be a div or any element. In this case, it's going to be this div. And the second parameter is something known as the reference node. In this case, it's going to be, for example, this first form group. So we're going to use document query selector. A query selector is going to return only the first one. So we're going to add form group like this, and this is going to insert the error. So save this and try to send the form empty. Click here, and you can see that we have all the fields are mandatory. And you can see it's printing these paragraph tags. Yes, because it says inner text, we need to pass in inner HTML. So save this again. Try to send the quote. You can see we have all the fields are mandatory. And this is going to be always there. We're going to run a function that's going to remove the error, and we're going to add set timeout, and it's going to be a function, and it's going to remove this after 3 seconds. So it's going to be like this. And we're going to use document.querySelector. And here you can see we added this class called error. So we're going to select that class and then we're going to remove. So save this, click here again. It's going to print the error. And after 3 seconds, it's going to remove this div. So the first part of the if statement, if you scroll to the top, this part is done. So in the next video, we're going to continue building this second part. So the first part of this if statement now is done. And you can see that if I press on get quote, it's going to print this message. So the next part is going to be to actually calculate the insurance. We're going to add a comment right here, make the quotation. So we're going to calculate and print the results in this part. So first, I'm going to create a new const variable and I'm going to call this one insurance. Then this is going to instantiate the object that is going to take part, for example, for everything related to the insurance. So we're going to call new insurance like this. So we need to create this, and this should be uppercase. We need to create this object, and I'm gonna create this right here. So we're gonna add a comment here, everything related to the HTML is going to be that object, and also everything related to the quotation and calculations is insurance. So we're going to create a new function. It's going to be insurance, and this one, this HTML UI was empty. In this case, this one is going to take 3 different parameters. It's going to take the make, it's going to take the year of the car, and also the level of protection. So then we're going to add the properties. This make is going to be equal to make, this year is going to be equal to year, and this dot level is going to be equal to the level of protection. So we need to pass also this make, year, and model into this insurance. So it's going to be these properties that we have here, these variables. So make, year, and level. So right here, before we are checking and we're getting the values. If some of this is empty, any of this is empty, we're gonna print this error. In the case that all of these have something, we're gonna create a new insurance object. So this is going to hold all the new instance, and we're gonna create another one called price. It's going to be equals, and we have this insurance. So it's going to be equals to insurance, and also we're gonna call this method calculate quotation, and it's going to take this insurance object. So we need to create also this prototype called calculate quotation. So right after we have this, we're gonna calculate the price for the current quotation. So it's going to be like this. We're gonna add insurance, which is going to be the name of the object, prototype, then a dot, the name of the method. You can see this method is right here, and this is going to be equals to a function, and this is going to take 3 different parameters. It's going to take the make, the year, and the level. All of these are in this object, so we're gonna pass this into this function. So if you add something like console.log and you pass that insurance, it's going to print all the information, make, year, and level from this object. So open the project and open the console. I'm gonna make this like this. I think it's going to be better. So we're gonna select American 2080, complete, get quote, and you can see that the object is sending these values correctly. So everything is going to be into this object. This object is going to be created every time we click on this get quote button and we pass the 3 different variables with a value. So you can see it says new insurance. So here is where everything is going to happen in the project. So we're gonna add some fictitious prices and everything. So first we're gonna create a variable called price. This is going to be the price, and we're gonna, for example, read these values. So for example, the complete, level of protection, the year, everything is going to be things that are going to be changing the value of this price. Then I'm gonna create a const variable that is called base. So the base of this insurance is going to be 2000. From here we're gonna make all the calculations, and this is going to simulate that we are giving different values based on the different, for example, level of protection, the different makes, and also the different years. So we're gonna give this base. Then we're gonna read the make. If you take a look here on the object, you can see that insurance.make is going to return the make. So we're gonna add we can add a const make equals to insurance dot make. So we're gonna access that value. Then I'm gonna add some rules that we're gonna use. So for example, the make, that is the number 1, is going to be American, and this is going to increase the value by a 50% more. Then for example, the Asian is going to increase the base, this base that we have here, by 1.05, is going to be 5%, and the European car is going to be the most expensive insurance, is going to cost a 35% extra. So it's going to be like this, and we can remove this one if you want. It's going to be 50% more, 5% more, and 35% more. We are doing this and adding these values because the idea of this project is that each of these different makes will print different values based on the year and also the level of protection and also the make. So let's open the code again, and we're gonna add a switch statement. Switch, and we're gonna evaluate the make. You can see that here the make, we are sending the IDs 1, 2, and 3. If you open the index.html, here you will find that the number 1 is American, number 2 is Asian, number 3 is European. So we're gonna add something like this. In the case that the number is 1, this is going to be an American car. So it's going to be the price that we define here. It's going to be price equals to the base multiplied by 1.15. And this is going to have a break. So you can see this is going to increase this base by 50%. So we're going to copy this and paste. So the case 2 is going to be the Asian car, and this is going to increase the value by 5%, so it's going to be 1.05%. Finally, we're going to have the European car, and this is going to be case 3, and it's going to be the base 2000, and it's going to multiply this by 1.35. So doing this, we can send this price into the console.log, price like this, save this and open the console. And for example, if you add American right here, and then you try to get the quote, you can see that we have $2,300 or euros, it doesn't really matter, but you can see that it multiply the base and it increased the value by 50%. If you change this to Asian, you can see that we have a different value, and also for the European, it's going to be a different value. So this is working just fine. So doing this, we're gonna print or return different prices based on the model of the car. So we're gonna remove this. Then we're gonna get the year. If you remember, we are passing this insurance, so it's going to be const year equals to, and we're gonna add insurance dot year like this. So we can console log the year, and this year is going to print the year that this person selects from the form. You can click here, you can see what we have: 2015 and 2005 and others. We need to get, and I'm gonna add get the years difference, because we need to return the difference between the current year and the year that the car that they are trying to get a quote. So we're gonna create a new prototype, and we're gonna add a comment right here, and returns the difference between years. So right after, we're gonna add a const difference is going to be equals to this, because we need to access this this other method. We're gonna call this one get year difference, and this one requires the year. So this is going to be the year that this person select from the menu, from the form. So then we're gonna add insurance prototype, and we're gonna create this method. It's going to be a function, and it's going to take a year. So we're passing the year, and this is going to return the difference. So it's going to be really simple. Return new date. We're gonna add the method get full year, so it's going to return the current year, and it's going to be minus the year that the person select from the menu, from the form. So we're gonna console log the difference. So console log the difference, select one of these, and then select the year. So let's add 2008, and you can see this is going to return a difference of 10 years. If you select a car from the current year, it's going to return 0. So this is working fine. And normally you will add small methods like this, and instead of writing a really big function, you can add also, or you can help your code by adding these small methods. So then we're gonna add each year the cost of the insurance is going to be 3% cheaper. So this is why it's important to get the difference. So you can see that we already have this variable that is called price. So we're gonna use that. It's going to be price equals the current price that we have from the base. If you remember, we defined this base, and then we increase based on the different makes that we have here, the models. So this price is going to be already there, depending or based on the selection from the user. We're gonna subtract, because each year the price of the insurance is going to be 3% cheaper. So each year in this difference is going to subtract 3% of the cost of this insurance. So it's going to be like this, minus, and I'm gonna add 2 parentheses, and it's going to be the difference multiplied by 3. So this is going to give 3% for each year, and this is going to multiply the price that we already have with the base, and it's going to make the division between 100. So this is going to be the algorithm that we need to get something like this. So we can console log the price, console.log the price for this insurance, save this, and let's say, for example, we want to select American and get the quote. You can see we have 2300 because we have the base, and then multiply it by the 50% increment that is added into all the American cars. So if you add a car, for example, 2008, get quote, and this is going to be 30% less, because the difference in years is 10 years, and each year is going to decrease the value by 3%. So if you select European and you try to select another year, it's going to print different values, because these are printing different values, but also now the years are printing different values. So in the next video, we're gonna finish this function to get the quote of this car insurance app. So the last part of this function, and I'm gonna remove this. This get years difference should be right here on the top. The last part of this is going to check the level of protection. We only have two options, basic or complete. So we're gonna add a new variable. It's going to be called level, and we're gonna add insurance that level. Then we're gonna create a new prototype. So we're gonna add the value based on the level of protection. So right here I'm gonna add, this is going to update also the price. So we're gonna access a new property, a new prototype that is called calculate level. And this function is going to take the current price that we already have at this point. The price is going to be the base, also the increment that we have here, also the years. So at this point, this price is going to be right here. We need to pass this into the calculate level, so it's going to update the correct price. Then we need to pass also the level. So right after this comment, I'm gonna add again the object. It's going to be insurance prototype, and this is going to be the method that we are trying to create. Calculate level. It's going to be a function, and again it's going to take two parameters, the price and the level of protection. So we're gonna add a small comment here. So the basic insurance is going to increase the value by 30%, and complete insurance is going to increase the value by 50%. So we're gonna increase to the current value, the current price, we're gonna increase 30% in case of the basic insurance level and 50% in case of the complete level. So for example, we can console.log the level of protection, save this and select any model is going to work. Get quote, you can see we have basic, complete, get quote, and you can see we have complete. So we can add an if statement. If the level of protection is equals to basic, the price is going to be equals to the current price, and it's going to be multiplied by 1.30 or 1.3, and this is going to increase to the current value at 30%. In the case of the complete, it's going to be price, and it's going to be 1.5, something like this, and this is going to increase the current value by 50%. And now we have this cover. So this is going to update this price, but we need to return that value, return price, and now everything is going to be into this function. So we can console.log this price, console.log price, and let's select, for example, an European car. We're going to select 2080, and the level of protection is going to be basic, so get quote. You can see we have this price. If we add complete, it's going to increase the value. So you can see that this is working just fine. So let's open the code again, and I'm gonna remove this. If you remember, when we instantiate this insurance, it's going to be here on the top. You can see we have insurance, and it says const price, so we need to return that value again. So return the price. So a quick recap. We pass the validation here, all the fields have something. Then we create a new object. We pass the make, the year, and the level. Then we calculate the quotation. We make all the math right here. We call two different methods, and finally we return the price. So at this point, this price should print also the current price. It's going to hold the price for the quotation. So if you select American, get quote, change to complete, get quote. You can see that this is working. So the last step is going to be to pass this price from this object into the other object that we have for the HTML. So we're going to add a comment, print the result from HTML UI. So this is going to pass this price, and we're going to execute HTML and a dot, and we're going to create a new method that is called show results, and we're going to pass the price. So in the next video we're going to write this function, and we're going to print the price for this quotation. So in this video we're going to print the price into the HTML. You can see that I added this new method called show results, and it's taking the price. So we're going to scroll to the bottom, and right after we have this object, and here on the bottom, prints the result into the HTML. So we're going to call the object HTML UI, then prototype and a dot, and I need to copy the method show results. Show results is going to be equals to a function, and it's going to take the price. So from here we're gonna print the result. So we're gonna open the index.html, and here on the bottom you can see that we have this result. This div is empty, and we're gonna inject the code right here. So we're gonna select this div, this ID. We're gonna add const result is going to be equals to document, and we're gonna use get element by ID. You can also use query selector if you want. And from here we're gonna inject the code. We're gonna create a div with the result. So it's going to be the div with the ID result, and then inside is going to contain another div. So we're gonna add const div is going to be equals to document that create element, and we're gonna create a div. Then we're gonna insert the result like this, and it's going to be div inner HTML is going to be equals to template or string literals. And right here I'm gonna add a paragraph. I'm gonna add a class called total, and we're gonna add total $, then $, again, and we're gonna pass this price. Then close the paragraph tag. Finally, we need to insert this into the HTML. So we're gonna select this result div, result, and we're gonna add a pen child, and we're gonna pass the div with this template. So we're gonna save this and select American, select a different year, get quote, and you can see we have total, and it's printing the total. But you can see it only says total. We can add some extra information. We can add, for example, some information about the car that this person is trying to get the quote. So in the next video, we're gonna add some extra information into this div. So in the last video, we insert this total, and we want to print some extra information, something like, for example, the car that this person is trying to get the quotation, the year, the level of protection, and some useful information. Something similar to a summary is going to be printed right here. So first I'm gonna scroll to the top, and here where we pass the show results, we're gonna pass also the insurance. So we're gonna add a comma, and we're gonna pass the insurance. So now everything that the person added into the form is going to be also in the show results. So let's open the show results, and right here I'm gonna add a comma, and we're gonna take also the insurance. So right here I'm gonna add let make. We can also, I think we can add this as const. Make is going to be equals to insurance.make, and let's console log the make. I'm gonna show you something. So open this, select any make, get quote, and you can see that this insurance object, the make is printing this as 1. So in order to print this as a summary, I think we need to get these IDs and give actual values. So I'm gonna remove this. Get make from the object, and assign a readable name. So I'm gonna cut this and paste. And we're gonna create another switch statement. In this case, we're going to evaluate the make, and it's going to be similar to the other one. In the case of case one, we're gonna add make. The make is going to be updated, so we need to change this to let, and make is going to be equals to number 1 is going to be American, and we're gonna add a break. So copy this and paste, copy this, and again. So the number 2 is going to be Asian, and number 3 is going to be European. So now if we console log the make, console log make, and we select any make, get quote, you can see now we have a more readable name. So we can remove this. And here on the inner HTML, we can add more information. So we're gonna create a paragraph with the class header. And I'm gonna add the text summary. Close the paragraph. Then we're gonna create another paragraph. It's gonna be called make. So we're going to add this make right here. So close the paragraph. Then we're gonna add the year. And the year is coming from the insurance object that we're passing here. And it's insurance.year. Close the paragraph. And finally, we're gonna add the level. And again, this is going to come from the insurance object. So insurance, a dot, and the level of protection. So save this and let's select European 2010, complete, and we're gonna get quote. And you can see we have make European, year 2010, the level is complete, and the total 378. So this is looking like this because in the style sheet for the custom CSS, I added right here on the result some styling. You can see here we have the paragraph with the class header. So this is why it's looking like this. So we're gonna remove that. And for example, if you try to get the quote from another car, say American 2012, and get quote, you can see now we have 2 different quotes. So in the next video, let's see how you can remove the previous one and then insert the new one. So let's finish this example. And you can see that if you continue adding more and more quotations, you can see that they are getting stacked one above the other one. If you inspect the code right here, you can see that we have a div with ID result, and then we insert a new div. So each of these is going to be in its own div. So we're gonna scroll to the top. And here, before we create the new object for the insurance, I'm gonna create a new function, clear the previous quotes like this. So we're gonna create a const variable. It's going to be called prep result, the previous result. And then we're gonna document query selector in this case because I'm gonna use result and then div. It's going to be like this. So we're gonna add if prep result is not equal to null, because at the first time that you try to make a quotation, this element doesn't exist. So in case that this is not, we're gonna add prep result and we're gonna remove this. So this is going to check that this element exists before performing this action. So we're gonna save this, select American, get quote, you can see we have American, and try to select European and complete, get quote, and you can see that it removed the previous result and then inserted the new quotation. So finally, you can see that we have these show results. We're gonna open this, I'm gonna scroll to the bottom, and before we add this, insert this into the HTML, you can see here we have this spinner. If you open the index.html, you can see that we have this loading, and if you open custom you can see that loading IMG has a display and none. So we're gonna add the following. We're gonna create a selector. I'm gonna call this one const spinner is going to be equals to document query selector, and we're gonna select for loading IMG. Then I'm gonna add the spinner style display, and display is going to be equal to block, and then we're gonna create a set timeout, and this is going to be a function. So after 3 seconds we're going to print this into HTML, and the spinner is going to be hidden. So we're gonna add spinner that style that display equals to none. So save this, and let's select American, get quote. You can see we have the spinner, and after 3 seconds we display the summary. Click here again. If you want to center this, you can add, for example, here on the loading, we can add margin 0 auto is going to center this. So reload this again, get code. You can see this is center. It's going to simulate that we are doing some operations, and then it's going to display the result. Something fancy, of course. You can remove that if you don't like this spinner. So this is it for this project. In the next chapter, we're gonna create another project. So before we start working with the other project, I'm gonna show you how to create this project. For example, you can see that we have these prototypes and these objects. I'm gonna show you how to take this project. I'm gonna show you how to convert these from prototypes into the new ECMAScript 6 objects and properties. So first we're gonna select everything, and we're gonna create a new file called app classes.js. So paste everything. Then we're gonna open the index.html, and here I'm gonna add app classes like this. We're gonna remove this, and then at the end you can compare the two different files. So first you can see that here we have only event listeners and everything. Then we have this function insurance. So using classes, you need to change this to class, then insurance. Then you are gonna create a constructor. So we're gonna add constructor, and open the parentheses and open the braces, and we need to cut this, paste this inside the parentheses, cut this also, and paste into the body of the constructor, and you can remove these parentheses. So now we have a class and this constructor. Then we need to take each of the prototypes and take them into the class. So we're gonna select everything, all the prototypes starting with insurance, cut, and right here after the constructor we're gonna paste this, and I'm gonna select all of these, and I'm gonna indent the code just a little. So in this case we need to remove everything from here. We're gonna remove this function. We're gonna remove everything from here to here, and also the insurance and prototype. So it's going to be calculate quotation, and we need to pass the insurance. So scroll to the bottom, and I'm gonna indent this code just a little more. So let's take the other one. I'm gonna remove everything from here to here. Also into the calculate level, we're gonna remove both. Then this function, and we're gonna remove this, and we're gonna remove this function and the equal sign, like this. And we're gonna indent this code a little. So this is going to be the closing right here, and this is going to be the end of the class. So then we're gonna create, and this is going to be the first class for the insurance with a constructor and 3 different methods. So then we're gonna rename this. We're gonna add class right here. Then the name of the class, we're gonna remove this. And this one doesn't have any constructor, so we're gonna select only the prototypes. Select everything, paste right here. And we're gonna select all the methods all the prototypes, and I'm gonna indent this, and then I'm gonna remove a prototype from all of them. Also this function. Next one. And the function, you need to keep the parentheses, and also this prototype. So like this is going to be now from prototypes into classes. And you can see it's not printing the year, so I'm gonna open the console. We have an error right here, line 166. Yeah, this dot is right here. Shouldn't be there. HTML UI is not defined. And yeah, this is happening because here on the bottom we have the classes. So we're gonna rename this into classes. And we are instantiating the class, and the class is at the bottom. So we need to cut everything and add the classes first. You can also, for example, normally this is something that I make, is to create a new file that is called classes.js. So this is going to contain the classes, and normally you can also create insurance.js and also HTML UI.js. So if we create classes.js and then we call that file first, we are going to get rid of this problem. So we're going to have classes.js like this. And now you can see that this is working. It's printing the years. So let's make a quotation really quick. You can see this is working, and it's also printing the results. So normally if your project is growing, you can add different files for different classes. That will be recommended. And normally you will load the classes first, then you are going to instantiate them to avoid these kind of problems. So in the next video, in the next chapter, we're gonna build a new project.